Jasmine Crockett walked onto Congress with a mission and a fire in her voice that echoed through the chamber as the nation watched in real time. She stood before a room full of lawmakers, not just with notes or a planned speech but with the passion that could be felt even through the television screens across America. Her eyes locked in with determination as she prepared to confront Governor Ron DeSantis over a series of policies that had sparked outrage from coast to coast, and the moment she began speaking the entire room shifted in energy. There was no hesitation in her words and no attempt to sugarcoat her message. She addressed the governor directly, tearing through layers of political rhetoric and exposing what she called the hypocrisy and cruelty behind his legislative decisions. With a tone that was calm yet firm, she laid out facts, figures and testimonies from families affected by his policies, leaving no room for doubt about the impact of his actions, and each word she spoke seemed to hit harder than the last. Crockett didn't raise her voice, but the strength in her delivery was louder than any shout. She questioned DeSantis on issues ranging from immigration to education and civil rights with a focus that suggested she had been preparing for this moment her entire life. The governor, known for his combative style, seemed taken aback by the sheer depth of her research and the confidence with which she countered every response he tried to offer. As the exchange continued, it became clear that Crockett wasn't there for political theater. She was there to hold someone accountable, and she did so with a level of precision and poise that left even her critics unable to deny her power. Her questions were surgical, cutting through political talking points and demanding real answers that DeSantis struggled to provide. As the tension in the room grew thicker, the audience watching from home began reacting almost instantly, with social media platforms exploding in support of Crockett. Hashtags with her name trended within minutes, and video clips of her statements went viral, drawing praise from figures across the political spectrum. It wasn't just what she said, but how she said it, the composure in her voice and the unwavering gaze she held while standing firm in the face of one of the most powerful Republican governors in the country. Back in the chamber, other members of Congress looked on in a mix of awe and discomfort. Many had seen confrontations before, but few had witnessed a dismantling so thorough and undeniable. Crockett called out what she described as systemic failures and political cruelty in a way that wasn't just passionate but also grounded in lived experiences from the communities she represents, and every example she cited built her case further. She referenced schools defunded by the governor's decisions, immigrant families separated under his orders, and marginalized voices silenced by policies that she labeled dangerous and un-American. Her words struck a nerve because they reflected what millions of Americans had been feeling but hadn't yet heard spoken so directly on the national stage, and her refusal to back down made it impossible to ignore. DeSantis attempted to interrupt, but Crockett wasn't having it. She raised her hand and in a commanding voice reminded him and the room that this was not a debate but a demand for accountability. She wasn't there to argue, she was there to shine a light on injustice, and the glare of that light was now blindingly clear to everyone watching, including the governor himself. As Crockett continued, the energy in the room turned electric. She drew from history, the Constitution, and present-day stories of families struggling under the weight of policy choices made far from their homes but impacting them daily. She connected the dots in a way that few politicians do, making the issues feel personal, urgent, and real. With every passing second, the gravity of her words intensified. The governor visibly shifted in his seat, reaching for notes that could not counter the lived realities being spoken across the chamber. He offered sound bites and deflections, but Crockett responded with more substance, more evidence, and more power. The crowd and the gallery remained silent, yet their expressions mirrored the mood across the country: shock, admiration, and a sense that they were witnessing something historic. Crockett's tone never wavered, her hands never trembled, and her stance never weakened. She stood as a symbol of resistance, truth, and moral clarity, refusing to be intimidated by power, titles, or cameras. It was a moment where truth challenged authority and truth won, and the applause that erupted at the end of her statement was not just for the speech but for the courage it took to deliver it. Reporters swarmed the halls outside, trying to capture the atmosphere that lingered even after the confrontation ended. Political analysts rushed to rewrite their narratives, and overnight Crockett became a household name, not just for what she said but for how she stood firm under fire and refused to let her voice be silenced in the face of political might. America had watched countless hearing speeches and debates, but this moment felt different. It resonated because it was real, raw and relentless. Jasmine Crockett didn't just challenge a governor, she challenged the system, and did so in a way that gave hope to those who often feel unheard and unseen, and for once they saw someone speaking for them with no filter and no fear. Across the country, people from every background tuned and rewatched and replayed her speech over and over again. Community leaders, teachers, students and activists found strength in her stance, and her words began to echo in rallies and conversations beyond the walls of Congress. It was a spark that many believe lit the beginning of something bigger, a shift in political courage and representation. And as Jasmine Crockett walked out of the chamber that day with her head held high, the world knew something had changed. The balance of power had been challenged, not with anger but with truth, and that truth came from a voice that refused to back down in the face of one of the biggest political confrontations of the year.